Wow, wow, wow. What a season that season four has been for us. Unbelievable. We have covered some really key tools over the last 12 weeks to help you live by your life by design, not by default, and how to be super productive to get the most out of every day, every week, every month, and every year. I'd love to hear your comments, whether this has been helpful, not helpful, whether it's been useful, whether there were some top tips. It would be amazing. And I'd love to hear from you because I'd love you to come on the journey with us together as we adventure together going forward. But firstly, let me just share some of the things that you have actually been going through over this last 12 weeks. The first thing that we covered was dynamic decluttering, decluttering not just from our physical space, but from our mental space or our spiritual space, so that we can literally live in peace. No anxiety, no worry, no stress, no trauma, just boff, job done. So that dynamic decluttering of our minds, our hearts, our bodies, our souls, and our spirits. And then in session two, we looked at what you focus on, because what you focus on expands. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And that's that delight of all the exciting things of how our reticular activating system works. It's like nuts. So let's focus on the things that bring us joy and peace and the good stuff. And then that led us really nicely into imagination. Because imagination, as Einstein would say, is more important than knowledge. We've got to be creative. We've got to be curious. We've got to think and dream and become the people that we were always called to be. So that's super cool. And then we looked at multiplication, how to dream big and achieve more, how to 10x your who's and your not your hows. So yes, I'm in a solopreneur business. I have extra people that bless them come and help me in different ways, but also I can't do everything. And I'm actually not made to do everything. So sometimes we have to find those people in their lanes. Somebody may be in marketing, somebody may be in accounting, whatever it might be. But how do we multiply? How do we achieve more, not only in our days, but in our businesses as well? And then we looked at leverage, the big three. And for those of you who listen to those each week or have been listening each week, faith, family, finance, in that order. They're my big three. When I focus on those, it's a little bit like if you imagine the cornerstone or that keystone, the keystone that you have in the old days of an arch, the keystone and the two stones next to it support it. So it's like the head and shoulders. And from that, everything else flows. So those, leveraging those big three for you, what are they for you? Let me know. I'd love to know what your big three are because everything flows from there. And then we looked at some exchange rates. The Great Exchange, the book that I've just written and has become an international bestseller, is all about exchanging the old, the baggage, for the new, the luggage, your past for your future. And we looked at 80% and 20% and how you want to make sure that that 20% that brings you the results is where you're growing and going in the future, rather than focusing on the things that don't help. And then I went into finishing strong, those evening routines that actually is more important than the morning routine because it sets you up for the morning. And so I actually did those together. I did them back to back. So session 7 was finishing strong and session 8 was starting that fresh start in the morning. So you get out of bed and you're pumping and you get done what you need to get done almost before your day started. It's insanely good, insanely good. So we went through evening routines and morning routines, and I was very open. I shared exactly what I do and what I don't do. And you can pick up what works for you. You don't have to do everything, but one thing at a time makes a difference. Funny, because we then went into habit stacking and how we can add a good habit onto another good habit. And then it becomes a good habit too. And then we can add another one in another space. And all of a sudden, we're into routines that serve us. We're into spaces where we eat well and we sleep well and we work well and we have amazing relationships. All just by doing one thing, adding one thing, habit stacking. And then it is done. We had a quick look in week 10 at winners have done lists and losers have to-do lists. And it's about looking at the gain, not the gap. What have I done? What have I achieved? Where have I made a difference? You know what? True nobility is not me being better than you or you being better than me. It's me or you being better than you were yesterday. Cool, huh? So it's all about measuring that growth, those wins, those gains. Have I done that today? Have I achieved what I set out to do? And if I didn't achieve what I set out to do, what did I choose to do? Choose to do being the key word instead. And then last week was winning in the game of life. It was all about the fact that life doesn't happen to you. And to be fair, a lot of it doesn't happen for you, but it happens because of you. You are exactly where you have decided to be within reason. So the choices we make determine the directions our lives take and the people we become. You're choosing to listen to this video today, and thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope that it uplifts you, it empowers you, it excites you, and it gets you moving. And today we are literally saying it's a wrap. We've done all of those. So congratulating you for listening to each one, for taking the action. Because you know what? We can have all the knowledge in the world, but if we don't use it, it's useless. You know, knowledge is a treasure. Practice is the key to it. So I encourage you to practice some of the tools that we've given. Now, some of you might want to know what's coming up next, because that's always exciting to find out what's coming up next. Well, I decided, actually, I didn't decide, the Holy Spirit decided. I asked God, I said, come on, God, what are we doing for season 5? And he said, it's time to share who I am for you. So season 5 for me is going to be the most exciting season yet. I believe it is time for me to share my faith with you, not religion, because I ain't into religion, just quietly. How I relate to God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and what does that mean? Who are they? I sense it's time to break down the walls of religion and be an open book. And so for me, that's exactly what I'm going to do for you in this coming season. I believe many have an opinion of what church is, and they might have an opinion about what the Bible is. And to be honest, most people think, oh my goodness, they're all goody two shoes. Like that must be dull. That must be boring. Oh my goodness. And you know, and they're worried about how they might look, how they might feel. This is scary stuff. So you know what? I'm going to break all those walls down, because that is all a load of BS, just quietly. And I mean that kindly. But how can anyone talk about anything if they've either never been in a church, or when they have, they've had a bad experience, and many people have, and I am not saying that that's okay. But God isn't about religion, and I feel like it'd be good for me to share some of that. The other thing as well is that second-hand offense is worse than the original offense. So somebody shared something with you, and then you've got the hump because of what they've shared. Unhelpful. It causes rifts, it causes unkindness, and it causes lack of love. And I suppose that that's really where I'm coming from. God is love. And for so many, they go, well, how can this happen? What if he's love? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? Well, you know what? I'm going to do my best to unpack some of the curliest questions that I have been asked about my faith. And for many of you who know me, my faith is fairly new. So I've had a lot of time not hanging out with Jesus, not hanging out with God, not hanging out with the Holy Spirit. So I pray that as you come into this next season, I will be able to help you bridge the gap between who is this guy to I totally know this guy, or what is this all about to oh my goodness, I now know, I've got an idea, I get it. So that is what I'm hoping to share. And as always, your comments throughout this time, throughout these videos, letting me know what you think. Sal, I think that's a load of old rubbish. Fine, share that. Sal, I think this is brilliant. Oh my goodness, I hadn't seen it that way before. Brilliant. Let me know, because I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you. I'm not here for me. I'm not here for, oh, look at Sally, she's amazing. Because quite frankly, without Jesus, I'm as much use as a chocolate fireguard. But anyway, we'll unpack some of that as we go through. So season 5, do you want a quick look? Do you want to know what's going to be coming up? Well, let me tell you. I'm going to give you a quick introduction about why I'm doing this nuts series this coming season. And then I'm going to talk about why I believe. Why do I believe the things I do? Why do you believe the things you do? I'm going to help you to start asking your own questions of yourself and of God. And why God? Why Jesus? Why us? Why? What is this crazy business all about? So that's something I'm going to share what I think it's all about. Doesn't mean to say I'm right. I am sharing what for my best abilities, my best knowledge about how I understand this. And then the following week, I'm actually going to unlock the Trinity because God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, who I had no idea who any of them were about 7 years ago, just quietly, but the whole stuff, their relationship, the crazy stuff of who they are and how they relate to each other, I can't wait to share that. So that'll be in episode 4. And then in episode 5, I'm going to share about the 5 ways God speaks to us. And actually, you can have some fun and actually have a chat with him yourself. How cool is that? And then 6, we're going to talk about prophecy because actually that is how God called me home, was with a gentleman who had a word of knowledge. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What does prophecy mean? How does it work? I share these words with the boys. And this week, they said to me, actually, can you explain a bit more? I don't really understand this. So actually, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So thank you, boys, Year 13 boys at Lindisfarne. That's actually your topic. And then 7 is about miracles. What do they look like? What are miracles? How do they work? Where do they come from? And that stuff like that. And then session 8, God is love. And this is a big question for many. How can God be love if somebody dies? Or how can God be love if disasters happen? We're going to look at some of that sensitively and kindly because I know there's been some horrendous things that have happened to some people and I'm not excusing any of that. But I do believe God is love and I'm going to share around that. And then when I went to church for the first time in a long time, this guy with a word of knowledge said to me, "Who is Jesus to you?" And I had no flipping idea. So guess what? I'm going to tell you who I think Jesus is to me now. So that's the next part of session 9. And then 10, I'm going to talk about the Holy Spirit because you can't do God, Jesus without the Holy Spirit. You've got to have the 3 because that's how they work. They work together. And where does my help come from? Where do I get wisdom and insight? Where do things come from for me? And then 11, I'm actually going to challenge you guys. Where are you on this journey? I want to know where you are. What do you think? What do you feel? What's your perspective on this? So we're just going to be quiet. Come on, let's go on this together. And then, as usual, 12 as a wrap up. It's the conclusion. It is done. So what I would love to know from each and every one of you, please come on this journey with me. Please subscribe to the channel because that helps me share it. Share the channel because then that passes the love on. And come on this journey with me. Come and see what it's really like and interact. I want to know, do you believe what I believe? Or do you believe something completely different? I'd love to hear what you think. So have an amazing, God bless week. I love you all dearly, and I look forward to starting season 5 with you next week. Take care.